So, first one, how's your party plan to reform the healthcare system, specifically so that all northeastern BC residents get equal access to care?
That is an excellent question. And as we all know, our healthcare system is in crisis. It has been for some time. The unfortunate reality is that I've had the ability to live through the healthcare system. My daughter was unfortunately hit head-on by a tractor trailer, and we went through the entire system from the trauma unit to the ICU for a week, to the step-down unit, to the general population, as I call it. I'm sure there's a proper term for it.
Yeah.
Right through to rehab. She had to learn how to walk again. And what I can say before I do give my answers, the reason I share that story is I want to say that my experience personally is that there are amazingly wonderful human beings within the healthcare system, and that those amazingly wonderful caring human beings, I unfortunately believe are being driven out by a broken system. And again, the healthcare system is in crisis. What our party is proposing is a patient-first solution to this. We're calling it patient first. And what we're looking at is a system by which has been very proven in Europe. Western European countries have been using it for some time now. The current system that Canada utilizes is actually utilized by 2 countries on the planet, Canada being one and Cuba being the second one. I think that's fairly telling as to how successful our system has been worldwide. But to get on with explaining what a patient-first system would be, is that it is still universal healthcare. It's still universal access for all patients, all people of British Columbia. However, the significant change is that their care can be provided both, and their services can be provided both through public means and private means. And the example that I like to give, because I do get these on a semi-regular basis, MRIs. In the South Piece, there's one private MRI clinic. In the North Piece, there's a public MRI clinic. I've had MRIs at both. And under our system, where the change, and the easiest way, again, in my mind, to explain the system is that should you need an MRI, you would have the choice of whether waiting for the public system or waiting for the private system. If you chose the private system, it would be this exact same interaction as if you went to the public system, whereby you bring your health card, you put it down, there's no money, there's no Visa card, there's no deposit, nothing of that nature. You would still require, of course, the doctor's authorization to access both systems. The difference, again, being that if you did choose to use the private system, that private provider would then bill the public system for their service. And it would be at the same rate, or a rate that's set by the government that would be equivalent to the public system. So what we've done in that case is we've doubled the access to MRIs in this region by allowing that to happen. And it's giving you the choice. So those that, again, from the South Peace region that may be traveling to Fort St. John might be a hindrance for whatever reason, Dawson Creek is that much closer for them. So that being said, MRI I use as an example. However, that system would apply to blood work, would apply to x-rays, would apply to wherever there's the option to provide both systems.
Anywhere where if I were to go to my healthcare provider and they would say, you need X test, here's some paper, your appointment is in 9 months, I could choose to go to a private clinic and have it done a little sooner.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, at no cost to you beyond the current tax burden that you have.
All right, that makes sense. And kind of leading into the next question, because I'm sure you've been asked this about the bringing in private as well. What will your party do to address the healthcare staffing shortages in this region?
That too is an excellent question. And as I thought about these beforehand, it ties in a little bit more to questions further on as well. I am a professional engineer. I'm very aware of the college system that is utilized by all professions in this country. And it really is, rather than it being a provincial college system, rather than it being a federal college system, it's provincial. So there's different requirements by province. The first step, I preface the answer by saying that for it to make sense later on. The first component that we would do is allocate more public money to training of the doctors, nurses, and other critical components of our society within the post-secondary system. Then we would streamline the means by which professionals can be attracted from outside jurisdictions. And again, to being that in the north is a challenge. I have to attract professionals into the north, and I've needed to for the last 20 years with I own an engineering firm. And it is a challenge. British Columbia has a different set of regulations and a different set of requirements as opposed to other provinces in the country. That is something that is controlled by the individual colleges, and we would work with those colleges to find a way to streamline them with other jurisdictions. Short of being able to find a common ground or a common system throughout the provinces, what I would propose, and this isn't party policy, but this is something that I would advocate for myself, is that we would have a group of individuals whose role is nothing other than to take, say for instance, if a doctor is trying to come from Nigeria, as an example, their role is to do nothing but make sure that that person's transition into British Columbia is as streamlined as possible. So if they need if the college decides they need another course, an upgrading course, if they need, I can't think of another example, but typically it would be an upgrading course, something of that nature. This group would be entirely responsible to make sure that that doctor gets that course, gets help studying, gets assistance in order to streamline it as much as possible. The final component that comes to mind is that, and I already have been working with local groups, as this is something that is my wife and I don't have a family doctor, as a million others of us in the province would attest to the same thing.
Me as well.
So I have gone to just outside of politics. I have tried to work with a number of groups that their purpose is to attract and retain medical professionals. And they're doing things such as just inviting them to the community, spending time with them, making certain that they feel at home, making sure that they feel special, making sure that they have bank accounts set up, just doing the day-to-day things that you and I wouldn't necessarily think is that important, but someone from another country might find it daunting or might find it overwhelming. And I do see great value in working with those groups. And I would see the government, again, this is not a policy issue, but I would advocate for having these groups incorporated into that government role of being the ones that streamline the doctors and nurses coming into the area.
And certainly these groups would have more of an opportunity than a government body, say in Victoria, to work with individuals to know exactly what the community where they're based needs, rather than just having applications sent to one area that knows little to nothing about, say, Prince George or Dawson Creek.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. And we'll kind of just move topics a little bit. How will your party continue to invest in natural resources while respecting Indigenous rights and climate change? We're seeing it, how things are changing with, of course, the Canfor mills, everything like that. What do you and your party have in mind?
We are very adamant about, and not just those would be the most obvious industries in the area, but I don't want to forget about agricultural, and I don't want to forget about ranching or any of the other significant industries that the wonderful people of this area. Obviously, I'm speaking about the South piece, but we're essentially brother and sister, North and South. I've been a farmer most of my life. I grew up as one, and I'd like to say that I understand the hardworking ethic and mentality of farmers and ranchers. In addition to that, I've also worked in the oil and gas industry for about 30 years. I've owned a consulting company in the oil and gas industry for about 20 years, in addition to a few other companies. And what I can say is that our party is very adamant about streamlining regulatory hurdles in order to create a situation whereby we can attract large-scale investment back to this province. It's very expensive to run a pipeline and an LNG plant on the coast. And in that particular case, you mentioned the climate change issue. Natural gas is one of the cleanest burning fuels that we have available in bulk. It is the cleanest burning fuel that we have available in large bulk. Why, in my mind and in the party's mind, why would we not be producing that and shipping it to jurisdictions such as India, China, who are currently using coal-fired generation of electricity or other means of heat, when we can provide them with a significantly cleaner source of fuel and economically benefit from doing it? The net benefit to the world environment is going to be significant, and we can achieve a net economic gain from doing so. And to me, that just makes perfect sense. With respect to reconciliation or respecting First Nations rights, you're going to find that the Conservative Party is committed to doing so. What we are looking at, or what we have proposed to do, is that we would absolve DRIPA, or the BC version of UNDRIP. However, we would replace it with a made in BC solution. So we're not ignorant to the fact of we all need to get along, that everyone's the same, everyone's equal, and we're very committed to going down that path.
All right. And this ties into what we've been talking about with natural resources, but what will your party do to address housing affordability?
Certainly that is an issue throughout the province. I think we certainly hear it talked about an awful lot more down in the Lower Mainland, where affordability has just become insane. First and foremost, repairing the economy, getting inflation under control, I think is going to be a very strong component of not retaining, because we don't have it anymore, but restoring housing affordability. The second thing that we would be looking at is repairing the forestry industry, bring costs down through decreased regulation, streamlining of regulation. We all realize and recognize we need regulation. It's for a society to function in a smooth, efficient, responsible manner. Yes, self-regulation. I've been in jurisdictions throughout my professional career where self-regulation was tried in major industries. And yes, I would say 95% of the time it worked. You always do have one or two players in the industry that may or may not give the best name to the industry. So we all recognize that we do need regulation. However, that regulation needs to be of a means by which we're not chasing away industry and we're not chasing away investment. By reducing that level of regulation, streamlining, making it more efficient for companies to operate, we will reduce the cost of natural resources, and in this particular case, that natural resources wood. And I think that's going to go a long way toward helping.
Okay. And what's your stance? We're changing again a little bit here. What's your stance on education and the curriculum that we currently have?
Fantastic question. That one does come up quite often. I did spend perhaps more years in school than I should admit. I'm a farm kid from Saskatchewan, and when I left school, there really was very, very little in the way of economic opportunity. I chased a lovely young lady to university. She wanted to be a teacher, and lo and behold, 33, or as I like to joke, 330 years later, we're still married. We've been together 36 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I wonder if she would say the same.
Maybe it would depend on the day.
Perhaps. That being said, I have spent a reasonable amount of time in the education system, and my oldest child and my youngest child have just finished the post-secondary education system as well. There has been a very significant change between, granted that's 30 years difference, there's been a very significant change between those two timeframes. What I would suggest is, and what the party is suggesting, is that we need to get back to a situation where we remove political bias and indoctrination from the school system. And we need to replace it with the child's ability. We need to be there to teach them how to think, not what to think. And I believe that, again, I hire professionals from literally across the world. I have a number of employees from overseas. I'm concerned at the competitiveness of our recent grads
Mhm.
from prestigious universities in this country in very high level science-based programs relative to what I'm seeing come from other countries. I'm deeply concerned by that. And I think we really need to go back and look at the basis of what is being taught to children, and we really need to have a fundamental change on what it is that we're teaching them so that we are competitive on a world market.
All right. And what is your party's plan for investment in infrastructure for our region? So this would be Peace River South or North or, yeah.
So when you say infrastructure, are you referring to bridges, roads, or are you referring to pipelines?
Both really.
Okay.
However you would describe infrastructure in the region, however you think about it.
I would suggest that infrastructure is an incredibly important topic, and I will give an example of that. My wife and I were very fortunate to travel with another couple to China last, wasn't this past May, it was the previous May, and the level of investment that that country has made in their infrastructure is stunning, beyond stunning. And when you think in terms between North Peace, South Peace, using perhaps the Taylor Bridge as an example, again, working as a consultant, I've crossed that bridge more times than I'm sure I can count. And when it's during repair season, I've actually sat and done the math in my mind with the number of vehicles sitting on both sides. I'm a consultant. I stamp the invoices and I know what things cost.
Yeah.
And when you actually calculate what that vehicle is costing per hour, that vehicle, the cost to our local economy by not having appropriate infrastructure for the area is stunning. And to me, that's a very high priority to, again, not only the roads and bridges, but also getting over to the pipeline situation. I think we did talk about that previously. To me, we're sitting on, so the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers have calculated a proven reserve of natural gas in Northeast BC. I did reservoir engineering when I was much, much younger, before the hair got a little bit grayish. And I can tell you that proven reserves are typically significantly lower than what actual reserves are. The value to our economy in Northeast BC, and primarily South Peace, North Peace, that value right now calculates out to almost $1 trillion.
Wow.
So we are sitting on $1 trillion worth of gas, proven $1 trillion. Again, the real number is probably multiples of times higher.
Yeah.
Without appropriate infrastructure, increasing the cost to companies of, again, using the Taylor Bridge as an example, that cost is borne by the energy industry, by the logging industry, by every industry that's using that thoroughfare. The cost decreases their profitability because they're all selling on world markets. If it costs them X number of dollars to produce in Northeast BC, but costs them X minus 3 to produce in Alberta, we have to be competitive. And it's in our best interest as a government to provide very strong level of infrastructure to increase the level of competitiveness of our industries. Not only that, but I would also add the increased safety factor to all of us that use those roads every day, absolutely, and bridges.
Certainly. I live at the bottom of the Taylor Hill on the other side, this side of the bridge. And the amount of times I've driven up there and there's massive rocks in the road, or there's someone who's lost a wheel, or a semi has given up halfway up the hill. I mean, and I've been told, I haven't experienced it in the winter just yet because I moved up in May, but I've been told that it gets even worse, both sides of the bridge.
You're in for a treat.
Yeah.
You're in for a treat.
Yeah, not looking forward to that. Final question.
Yes.
It is the hardest one. Are you willing to work across party lines to best represent your constituents?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is there's many reasons why I'm attracted to the Conservative Party of BC. One of them was laid out to me in the very first conversation that I had with John Rustad. And I don't know if you know the history of John. He was removed from the Liberal Party for speaking his mind on behalf of a constituent. John has said directly to me that my first role, my first responsibility is to my constituents. Second responsibility is to the party. So absolutely yes. If I can do something for the betterment of the people of the South Peace, I'm going to do absolutely everything that I can to do that.
Well, it's wonderful to hear. And those were all the questions.
Oh, fantastic.